A fake friend rarely becomes nervous when you confront them. Confrontation gives them something useful. It gives them your emotion, your accusations, your evidence, and enough information to construct a defense. They can deny what happened, explain away every suspicious detail, accuse you of being insecure, or perform just enough remorse to keep their place in your life. What truly unsettles them is much quieter. It begins when you stop explaining what you notice and start changing the access they have to you. Until that moment, they may have understood your habits better than you realized. They knew which compliment would make you open up, which personal insecurity would keep you seeking their approval, and how much disrespect you would tolerate before finally objecting. They may have watched you forgive behavior that they would never have accepted from you. Your predictability made the friendship comfortable for them, even when it was painful for you. Then something changes. You stop reporting every development in your life. You no longer defend every decision. You do not rush to fill uncomfortable silence, and you stop asking people to confirm whether your boundaries are reasonable. You remain polite, but your private world is no longer available on demand. A genuine friend may notice the shift and become curious or concerned. A fake friend often becomes restless because access was the real benefit they were receiving from the relationship. This distinction matters because not every disappointing friend is secretly malicious. People can become distracted, selfish, jealous, emotionally immature, or unreliable without carrying out a calculated campaign against you. One uncomfortable conversation does not reveal an enemy, and one clumsy reaction does not prove betrayal. Character becomes visible through patterns. How someone behaves when you succeed, when you say no, when you need support, when you are absent, and when there is nothing immediate for them to gain. Fake friendship survives through confusion. The relationship contains enough warmth to keep you invested and enough disrespect to keep you uncertain. The person may praise you privately, but diminish you around others. They may encourage you to reveal intimate information, then treat your vulnerability as social currency. They may appear whenever your life becomes exciting and disappear when your circumstances require patience. Nothing is obvious enough to justify a dramatic ending, yet something repeatedly leaves you feeling smaller. Many people respond to this discomfort by offering even more access. They explain themselves more carefully, share more personal context, work harder to appear generous, and try to recover the closeness they believed once existed. This is understandable, but it often worsens the imbalance. If someone benefits from your openness without protecting it, additional openness does not create loyalty. It merely increases the amount of material available to them. The behavior that changes everything is selective access. You stop treating friendship as an unlimited license to your thoughts, plans, time, contacts, emotional energy, and private history. You allow trust to determine access instead of allowing familiarity to impersonate trust. The change is not theatrical. You do not announce that you are becoming mysterious. You simply begin giving people a level of access that matches the quality of their conduct. This makes a fake friend nervous because they can no longer predict what you know, what you are planning, or how much influence they still possess. Their uncertainty is not proof of guilt, but it reveals something important when accompanied by pressure. A person who valued your well-being will usually respect your need for privacy. Someone who valued information, control, comparison, or convenience may immediately try to reopen the old arrangement. They might ask why you have become distant, even though you are still speaking to them normally. They may complain that you are secretive because you did not disclose a decision before making it. They may exaggerate your independence into rejection, saying that you have changed or become arrogant. What they are often reacting to is not cruelty. It is the disappearance of automatic access. Consider what happens when you receive an opportunity and decide not to announce it before it is secure. In the past, you might have shared every detail: who contacted you, what the offer involved, what you hoped would happen, and what you feared could go wrong. A supportive friend would have treated that information carefully. A competitive friend might have introduced doubt, compared your progress with their own, disclosed the news to others, or quietly interfered while pretending to advise you. When you reveal the opportunity only after the decision has been made, the dynamic changes. There is less room for interference and less time for someone else's anxiety to become your confusion. A fake friend may not be upset because you succeeded. They may be upset because your success developed outside their field of influence. They were not able to monitor it, discourage it, copy it, or position themselves inside it. The same principle applies to personal problems. Not everyone who asks for details is prepared to carry them responsibly. Some people want information because they care. Others want it because knowing your difficulties makes them feel comparatively secure. They listen intensely while you are struggling, yet become strangely absent when you recover. Your pain makes them attentive. Your progress makes them uncomfortable. Selective access does not require lying or pretending everything is perfect. It means recognizing that honesty does not obligate total disclosure. You can answer a personal question with, "I am working through it, but I would rather not discuss the details yet." You can say that a decision is still private. You can decline to explain a boundary beyond what is necessary. These responses are not acts of aggression. They are evidence that you have stopped confusing availability with sincerity. Watch what happens after a calm boundary. A healthy friend may feel disappointed, but they will usually adjust. They understand that closeness does not eliminate your right to privacy. A fake friend often treats the boundary as a challenge to their position. They may ask the same question in different forms, use humor to make your refusal seem ridiculous, recruit another person to investigate, or create a small crisis that pressures you to reopen emotionally. This is where many people surrender. The pressure feels like proof that they have done something wrong. They begin explaining the reason for the boundary, then explaining the explanation, until the boundary has become a negotiation. The other person learns that persistence still produces access. What looked like concern may actually have been a test of whether your no had any weight. You do not need to become cold. Coldness can be another kind of performance, and fake friends are often skilled at turning visible hostility into evidence against you. Calm consistency is harder to manipulate. You answer what you choose to answer, remain courteous, and refuse to debate your right to make ordinary decisions about your own life. Your behavior carries the message without requiring a dramatic speech. There is another change that makes an unhealthy friendship unstable. You stop bringing every rumor back to the person involved. Suppose someone tells you that your friend criticized you in your absence. The immediate impulse is to confront them, reveal the source, and demand an explanation. That may occasionally be appropriate, but constant confrontation teaches deceptive people exactly where information travels. They discover who talks to you, what reaches you, and which version of events you are prepared to believe. A more revealing approach is to slow down. You do not accept gossip as fact, but you do not immediately expose everything you have heard. You watch whether future behavior supports or contradicts the claim. You notice who celebrates your mistakes, who repeats confidential details, and whose personality changes depending on the audience. You allow patterns to accumulate before making a decision. This creates discomfort for a fake friend because they are accustomed to managing perceptions through rapid explanations. When you do not accuse them, they cannot easily determine which story requires repair. They may begin offering unsolicited justifications for events you never mentioned. They may repeatedly ask whether somebody has been talking about them. They may suddenly become unusually flattering or attempt to isolate you from people who could compare information with you. None of these reactions alone proves deception. Nervousness can come from guilt, but it can also come from insecurity, fear of abandonment, or misunderstanding. The purpose of observation is not to transform every awkward response into a confession. It is to replace impulsive judgment with a larger body of evidence. You are not trying to catch someone. You are deciding whether their behavior deserves continued trust. Fake friends also lose confidence when you stop participating in the invisible competitions they created. Perhaps they used to mention their achievements immediately after you described yours. Maybe every conversation became a comparison involving money, attention, appearance, relationships, or status. If you defended your value, they had succeeded in choosing the arena and making you compete. When you stop proving yourself, the game loses its structure. You can congratulate them without diminishing yourself. You can hear a subtle insult without rushing to demonstrate that it is false. You can allow them to misunderstand a harmless detail rather than submitting a complete case for your worth. This does not mean tolerating direct abuse. It means refusing to spend your identity in arguments designed to produce no honest resolution. A fake friend may intensify the comparison when the old methods stop working. The jokes become sharper. The praise becomes more conditional. They may refer to an embarrassing version of you that no longer exists, hoping to pull you back into a role where they felt superior. They may tell you that success has changed you, even though the real change is that you no longer apologize for growing. Pay attention to whether they can relate to your present self without constantly invoking your past. A real friend remembers where you came from but does not use that history as a ceiling. They can acknowledge your transformation without treating it as betrayal. A fake friend may prefer your wounds because those wounds once made the relationship easier to control. One of the clearest tests occurs when you stop rescuing them from the natural consequences of their behavior. You no longer invent excuses for their lateness, cover their responsibilities, lend what they repeatedly fail to return, or repair conflicts they created with other people. You can care about them without functioning as the unpaid manager of their life. The resulting nervousness is often disguised as moral outrage. They may call you selfish because you are no longer providing something they had come to consider automatic. This accusation can be persuasive if you built your identity around being dependable. Yet, dependability without limits eventually becomes permission for others to avoid responsibility. A boundary is not punishment when it is connected to behavior. If someone repeatedly violates confidentiality, you share less private information. If they frequently cancel plans at the last moment, you stop arranging your schedule around uncertain promises. If every favor produces a new demand, you reduce the favors. The consequence is not revenge. It is the practical adjustment required by the evidence you have been given. The most revealing part comes after the adjustment. A sincere friend may acknowledge the problem, repair the damage, and gradually rebuild trust through consistent behavior. A fake friend may skip accountability entirely and focus on restoring the old benefits. They do not ask what harmed you. They ask why you are no longer easy to reach, easy to persuade, or easy to use. This is why long explanations often work against you. Every reason you provide can become a separate argument. If you say you need more time, they challenge your schedule. If you mention emotional exhaustion, they insist that you are too sensitive. If you describe a repeated pattern, they demand examples and litigate each incident until the overall pattern disappears beneath minor disagreements. A brief explanation prevents the conversation from becoming a courtroom in which you must prove your right to protect yourself. You can say that the arrangement no longer works for you. You can acknowledge that they see things differently. You can refuse a request without producing a history of every previous favor. Someone does not need to agree with a boundary for the boundary to exist. Silence, however, should not be used as a weapon. There is a difference between withholding access and using withdrawal to punish someone into obedience. The goal is not to copy the behavior that harmed you. It is to create enough space for reality to become visible. Healthy distance clarifies. Manipulative silence confuses. Your intention and consistency distinguish the two. You may discover that some friendships improve once expectations become clearer. A person you suspected of being fake may simply have been accustomed to a pattern that neither of you examined. When you communicate calmly, they adapt. They begin asking instead of assuming, reciprocating instead of taking, and respecting information instead of circulating it. That possibility is worth leaving open because the purpose is discernment, not permanent suspicion. Other relationships will become increasingly unstable. The person may manufacture emergencies whenever your attention moves elsewhere. They might portray your boundary as evidence that another friend, partner, or opportunity has corrupted you. They could perform sudden affection, offer gifts, revive shared memories, or promise a level of loyalty their behavior has never demonstrated. This temporary warmth can be difficult to interpret. People often assume that renewed effort proves the friendship was genuine. Sometimes it does. Yet the question is not whether someone can behave well for several days after losing access. The question is whether their respect survives after they believe the danger of losing you has passed. Time exposes what confrontation can conceal. An apology delivered under pressure can be convincing, but a changed pattern requires repetition. Respect must remain when there is no immediate reward. Confidentiality must survive social temptation. Support must exist when your success offers them no advantage. Accountability must appear without you conducting an investigation. As you become more selective, you may experience guilt. You may wonder whether you have become guarded, difficult, or unfair. That discomfort is natural when you were trained to prove love through unlimited availability. The absence of constant access can feel like cruelty even when it is merely balance. Ask yourself a more useful question. Does this boundary protect something legitimate without needlessly controlling another person? If the answer is yes, discomfort does not automatically mean wrongdoing. Growth often feels unnatural before it feels stable, because the nervous system recognizes familiarity more quickly than health. There is no need to announce that you have finally understood everyone. Grand declarations create unnecessary enemies and lock you into judgments you may later need to revise. Let people reveal themselves under ordinary conditions. Reduce the information, attention, labor, and forgiveness that were never reciprocated. Observe who becomes respectful, who becomes curious, and who becomes hostile. The fake friend becomes nervous because your life is no longer an open room. They can enter whenever they need reassurance, entertainment, information, influence, or advantage. The door has not been destroyed. It simply has a lock now, and trust determines who receives the key. What matters most is not their nervousness. Making another person uncomfortable should never become your measure of power. The real change is that you are no longer organizing your life around keeping potentially disloyal people comfortable. Their reaction becomes information rather than a command. You do not need a confession to reduce access. You do not need unanimous agreement to trust a pattern. You do not need to expose someone publicly to leave a friendship that repeatedly damages your peace. At the same time, you do not need to label every imperfect person a narcissist, predator, or enemy. Maturity lives between blindness and paranoia. The next time a friendship leaves you chronically confused, resist the urge to launch an emotional investigation. Become quieter about your plans, clearer about your limits, and more attentive to consistency. Stop feeding every question with an intimate answer. Stop repairing every problem you did not create. Stop defending your growth to people committed to remembering your weakness. Then watch what the relationship does with the space. Genuine affection can survive privacy, independence, success, disagreement, and the word no. A connection built mainly on access and advantage often cannot. You are not becoming secretive. You are becoming discerning. You are not playing a psychological game. You are refusing to remain a piece in someone else's game. The people who care about you will not require unrestricted access to prove that you care about them. Those who become deeply unsettled when you develop boundaries may finally be revealing what they believed the friendship entitled them to receive. Let that revelation arrive without celebration and without revenge. You do not have to defeat a fake friend. You only have to stop volunteering for the role they assigned you.